Well, they always talk about that, that entrepreneurs act differently than other leaders. And I don't know if that's exactly true, but I've always wanted an organization that was sort of flat in its thinking, didn't care much about titles, one that didn't have some sort of org chart that was hierarchical. My company kicked me out of a cubicle and put me in an office because I wanted to be one of the guys or gals, and they said I can't be. I think I've been around long enough that I have enough urban legends about me that are good and bad, that I know I'm respected. I know people think of me as a leader in the industry. But I still probably don't know that I'm not one of the gals, But you can come into my office and tell me off and survive it. People do. But I really wanted a place where people. The story I always tell every new hire is corporate America is going to give you a thimble with their logo on it, and they're going to give you a trash can, and at the end of every day they're going to allow you to fill that thimble with trust and dump it into a huge trash can. I'm giving you a bucket full of trust to spill, and that's so much healthier, which means I want people to start earlier. I don't want them to sit and wait. I don't want them to sit on their hands for 90 days. I want them to get involved. They were hired for a reason. This is not a place where they can go hide as a number. Everybody that gets hired in my company has a job to do, and their productivity matters. The most fulfilling part, it's challenging to answer because I guess my answer will probably just surprise. Sometimes it's proving to others that I can do something. People doubt you, right? They don't think that you can do it. Sometimes it's just proving to yourself that you can do it. If you think I don't think of myself that I'm still a 16-year-old kid at heart who started a business, leveraged every nickel he ever had, and went for it, and then made something of it, and that's not cool, I think it is. But probably the greatest challenge of all is entrepreneurs measure themselves against perfection, and I never frickin' hit it. Mm-hmm. So there's always a gap between perfection and what I've done. And it took me almost my entire adult lifetime not to measure it against that. It's a major flaw. And you don't have to be an entrepreneur to feel that way. Mm-hmm. But entrepreneurs don't know how to celebrate. They don't know how to recognize what they've gotten done. Most I know. Mm-hmm. Because they're always driven, like, what's next? What are we going to do now? Because that's not good enough. But I don't know if that's true. I think realizing I approached this like I was a runner, and that I thought it was like a 400, and somewhere along the way I learned it was an ultra marathon. And I didn't train for it that way. So I was 5 years in before I said, man, I got to start going to the gym. I got to watch when I'm eating. I got to get a good night's. I literally killed myself. And I don't regret it, but I think it's just getting that balance right. Playing every role right. Wanting to be, a good husband, wanting to be a good dad, wanting to be a good community person, wanting to be a good leader in the business, because it requires sacrifices. The cool side is that you can come and go as you please, but you have to work for that. Mm-hmm. We all have things we're bad at, right? Mm-hmm. So believe it or not, I like almost every part of my job. It is stressful. Mm-hmm. I think it's the weight of payroll. The overwhelming, every 2 weeks I have to meet this payroll, and will I collect enough monies, which is normal business. Whether you're, DuPont or me, they have to collect enough monies from their customers to have money. Mm-hmm. So I think it's the weight and gravity of meeting a large payroll every 2 weeks that just blows my mind.
Stresses you out still to this day?
Yeah, well, sometimes my big customers have accounts payable clerks that go on vacation. Mm-hmm. So they owe their vendors money that's a lot of money to me, but not to them.
Yes.
So sometimes just that kind of crap happens, and then you have to have options to cover that. Mm-hmm. It's just timing. But yeah, it can make a Thursday night pretty stressful if you got a payroll for 50 people and a client owes you a lot of money that would just cover that payroll, and that's just the normal course of business. But that's the obvious one, because most entrepreneurs say they never get over meeting payroll. I think there's probably just stuff. Sometimes you feel like you can't make any progress at all, and it just sucks the wind out of you. Employees are unhappy, clients are unhappy. I'll give you, if you don't mind, I'll give you, as we've talked, I have probably even my better answer. What to this day probably broke my heart more than anything else is to take the risk of starting this company and to build the value and, you know, I was Philly 100, fast growth company, Inc. list company, grow, and then to realize that you can lose half of its value in 4 frickin' months. That, to me, I almost didn't recover. I was staggering around like a boxer, because, you know, you spend 7 years building this thing, and then in 4 months it's gone. And staying to fight was the hardest thing I ever had to do, because I thought about bankruptcy. I thought about, you know, could I live with the ego? Just, you know, just walking up to people, and when they said, how's business? How do you explain you go from 70 to 8 employees? You don't, right? And then one day you decide you will, and you stand up and say, you know what, the economy kicked my rear end. I'm down to 8 employees, but I'm fighting hard. Until you emotionally make that conversion, that was very clearly the hardest thing I ever had to do. It took me 6 months. Quite frankly, my pop got me through it. He kicked me in the rear end and said, what are you doing? You're going to waste this. You got to decide if you're going to stay and fight. And once I stayed and fought it, it got better. Well, I am an employee of the Cecil County Public School System. You know, you know, it is funny. I think you daydream about it. Wouldn't it be nice if someone else had these responsibilities? And I think, you know, one of the things I know from what I do is, generally speaking, an adult today in North America is going to have 7 to 11 different jobs and careers. Part-time, different industries, different things. You're going to move around a lot more. 20 years ago, it was 3. So it's 3 times as many today. So I don't think I'm always going to own a company, or always own this company. I have thought about replacing myself as president and giving myself a more interesting creative role in the company. And then, you know, we're not quite there financially to do it, but I think about that. I have other people tell me that I could never work for somebody, that it wouldn't work. I don't think that that's true. I think I'm pretty easy to get along with. I think it would have to be the right environment. Where what I can tell you is corporate America does not value what I am. They don't give a crap about the ability to take something from nothing and to find... there's a Harvard Business Review article that talks about the difference between corporate America and small business. And the gist of it is, in a small business, I encourage your heart to come work for me for the promise of something greater tomorrow. In corporate America, I get to tell you what to do because I'm paying you today. And that's the big difference between small business and corporate America. You'll do what I say and you'll fall in line because I'm paying you a lot of money. In small business, you're never probably paid a lot of money, but what you have is a voice, a say, and your heart is encouraged along the way.
So from what you're saying, it takes a lot of faith from your employees to work for a small business, and I was wondering, how have you instilled that faith in your employees? Why do they trust you so much?
Well, they don't always trust me. I think that's the honest thing, okay? Because we're all flawed, right? And people make mistakes. First of all, we hire people to our culture. That's one really important thing. We interview for small business. We ask people how it would feel to be not a number and to realize that your production or your work every day matters, and how we would feel about making decisions and having authorities. How do you feel about not having a title but always having more to do? Or how do you feel about needing to learn a lot to be really good? People have to want broad roles and jobs in order to work in a small business. You might want to need to work below a market premium. But so that's part of the interviewing process. I think the other part of it is if you live your value systems, you know, it is about communication, being honest and real with people, getting in front of problems and things. Having a routine in the business where people can get information. It's focused on those things. I'm told that the one advantage I have is that people find me sincere. Mm-hmm. And, you know, it's not that I'm not, it's just how people perceive me. But I think in essence, people always have a desire to understand where they stand, to have that feedback, to know where the company is going, to feel part of that. And it's really that simple. But people I really probably do it because people are involved and have a lot of say mm-hmm. in how it's going to go.
Now you touched on this a little bit. Head soccer coach at Elton High School. That's not really your career, but it's another job that you do. How has that impacted you by just yourself on a personal level, and then how has that impacted you in being the president of CBI Group?
Well, quite frankly, it's on my bucket list was to coach a high school team. So you check the box, right? It was a dream, if you will. It was a dream of something I wrote down that I wanted to do, I wanted to be. Which is kind of fun, you know, because I'm a checklist guy. It felt great to check something off, you know. You know, it's like getting an oil change in the car, just a lot bigger, right? It was kind of neat. I have learned, first of all, it is the thing that I enjoyed most at this point in my life. I think that the boys demonstrate more trust and respect and belief in what we've laid out than employees do. They don't know who they are. They haven't decided what their own personal culture is. So they're allowing me to help them figure that out. So I think I'm figuring out a little bit that I say all the time, I'm not there for my soccer abilities. I'm there to help these guys grow up and figure that out. So deep down and intrinsically, they probably